This is the Painting Business Pro Show, where we share inspiring stories from people who are just like you, who have created extraordinary results in their business and their life. We'll take the mystery out of it and show you behind the scenes exactly how these results happen. There's a simple process and a roadmap to follow to create life-changing success in business. You are capable of more than you realize. So listen in, discover what's possible, and let's unlock your potential. Let's go. Hey guys, so I got Matt Bopp with me today out of Indianapolis, and I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. So I've known Matt for probably 8 years now, something like that, and he has built a really amazing business. So he's going to share a little bit about that. He's mostly in commercial painting, and he's part of the reason that I wanted to get really into commercial painting, because when I heard his success in it, it's like, dude, this is too good to be true. And it's not too good to be true, but it is that good. So we're going to get into that. He's also at a really cool level in his business where he's building a leadership team. He's working with consultants. And so we've got a lot of cool stuff that we're going to get into. It's going to be a really unique episode. And especially if you're interested in what it looks like to build a big commercial company, Matt's got a lot of insight into that. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So first, stoked to talk with you again, Mr. Matt.
Thanks, Eric. Really appreciate the opportunity. It's always good to catch up a little bit. So
yeah, dude, I know. I had to beat Matt away when we were like just on the phone prepping for this. I'm like, no, don't tell me anything yet. Don't tell me anything yet. Because every time we talk, we end up chatting about all kinds of stuff. So we got some great things to talk about. But let's start with, like I told you, Matt warned you, why don't you lead off with the really cool results happening in your business. So where is it today? And I don't even know yet, so I'm excited to hear.
Definitely.
But revenue, profit, team.
Big picture. We've been in business for about 9 years now. This is the 9th year. When I first started the business, we started out very first year, did like 285,000 or something that year. Last year we did 2.1 million. As we talked about, 75% of our business is commercial, 25% residential. We can dive into a lot of this here in a minute, but commercially, I would say our gross margin is probably right around 45% on everything that we did last year. And we have started to hire a team. Big picture numbers, I'm still doing taxes right now, but I think probably a little over 450 last year is where I would guess. Then we've got some new hires that we've just brought on board. We're like you had mentioned, implementing some new systems and processes and just leadership model for how to run the business. I think one of the things that we're going to dive into today that I want to talk about a lot is scalability. And I had this mindset early on that I wanted to keep things smaller and just really have some basic relationship customers. I saw commercial as the easiest way to do that. So you have very little marketing cost, very little. Once you build a relationship with somebody, it's not like you have to go reinvent the wheel over and over and over again. And it's not transactional that I'm constantly selling them on legacy painting and why should you choose us and here's our quality and all that. They already know it at that point. So it really becomes commercial relationships can become easy repeat business that are much higher margin work because you're not reinventing the wheel and you're not spending additional marketing dollars once you've got that customer. So it should be much higher closing percentages, much better return on investment. That was the big premise for me. Yeah. And so we did that and we did it, 1 year we would add a few more customers and then we would add a few more customers. And residential really for a long time to us was just having a certain amount of residential jobs that we could have quick turnover, that we would have quick cash flow to continue to pay the bills and stuff. And so we almost looked at residential as a evil, necessary evil in a way. It's not really what we wanted to do. We didn't want to be in all these transactions. But we started to remodel our business where we're looking at that and going, no, it does make sense to do residential work. It's going to be a bigger part of what we're doing moving forward. And we think it's a good growth, avenue for us. But that's just the big picture. So last year we did 2.1 million. Return to ownership was around the 450 mark.
Killer.
We have no debt as an organization. The painting business has been awesome for us over the last 8 years. We own our home and our property. We take great vacations as a family. I've got 5 kids. We can take the kids and go down to Cancun twice a year for 7 days each time and just enjoy it and have fun. My wife stays at home. She does not work outside the home anymore. She homeschools our kids. And so it's a lot of good things. Now, obviously, do I just float around and,
No, well,
work 10 hours
I'll
a
tie
week
a
and
couple
stuff?
things
No,
together. First
but
of all, I didn't know you homeschooled all your kids. That's crazy. We have our kids in a
yeah,
Montessori school right now, and then they're going to be coming out. We're going to
yeah,
start homeschooling in August, our
awesome.
two, but we plan on having more. So maybe that'll probably not on the painting podcast, but maybe we'll have to chat about that sometime.
Yeah,
First of all, I just want to underline for everybody, like just what amazing, numbers they are. It's like 450, you're looking at like 22% net profit, and you don't do what do you do, estimates, or do you have an estimator now? Do you do any project management? What role are you playing in the business right now?
yeah, that's a great quick question. The last 2 years has been a big transition. I tried to hold on to everything for too long.
Yeah.
That was one of the hindsight being 2020. If I could go back and change some things, I would have probably sped this process up considerably. Uh, but right now, organizationally, we have an operations manager that we just hired this year, um, and a project manager. So we have 2 guys that are in operations and project management. On the sales side, we have a residential rep and a commercial rep, and then I still do a lot of selling as well. So I'm going out and looking at some estimates, and I look at myself as really going towards those higher level clients and big target clients. That's who I need to be interacting with more. And then we have an office administrator as well. She does a fantastic job kind of keeping us all on the same page and keeping us organized. So
What's like your
that's,
workload look like these days?
um, I'm probably working about 40 hours a week still. And
Yeah.
again, my goal for this year is to get to where I'm probably 25 hours a week
Yeah.
by the end of the year. That's where I want to be. I waited too long to start hiring a team to
Yeah.
where I was already in overload point,
Yeah.
and it's bit me in the butt a little
Yeah.
bit there. So we've just been in constant catch up mode of getting people hired and then trying to get their role organized and a clear job description and get them trained. And we're always running and putting our shoes on at the same time, it feels like, as this is happening.
Yeah.
So um, PBP has been good in that. It gives us templates and ideas of how to go about that. But um,
Well, I think there's a
some of
couple
it,
things, Matt. There's two things I
yeah,
want to pull out of what you're saying. One is, um, I think, watching you for the last several years, like you've done it in a really chill way. I mean, 8 years, I think most people would be pretty satisfied with a $2 million business, making 400 plus a year, working 40 hours a week, but with the ability to travel and leave anytime, like pretty amazing. But
right,
I know also along the way, I mean, I remember back when you were doing like 900 a million and you were netting 300, 350 and working a
right.
similar workload. So it's been that way a while. And now you've got this foundation with just the team you have. I think you can probably see 3 or 4 million while removing yourself, I imagine.
Yeah,
But so I think,
I think so too. Yeah,
so I think
but
there,
it's
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
the last 2 years has been that transition mode where I was comfortable when we were around a million or a little bit over a million
Hmm.
of being able to handle the workload. But as soon as we started to break through that barrier, it got too much, and it's been in catch up mode for us since we were probably like 1.2 to 2.1. That was about a 3 year transition right there.
Yeah.
Um, I've been in catch up mode for 3 years, trying to get the right people and the right processes lined out
Yeah.
because it was too much of it's all in Matt's head, and downloading that and getting people trained. That's been my fatal flaw that I'm trying to fix within myself and just give these things away so I can
Yeah.
have a cleaner operating procedure for everything. So,
It's amazing how easy it is to underestimate the amount of work that goes into building systems. I mean, it
yeah.
is a lot of work building those systems. So I think there's two valuable things to talk about. I think one, Matt, is the the simple, like what you've done over these years to like build a very healthy, very profitable business without crazy struggle. I know you've been overcommitted the last few years, but every time I've ever talked to you, you've been pretty steady, with everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're pulling your hair out. You were conservative for a little while there, which I thought was fine.
For
That was just
sure.
where you were at the time. I know you say in
Yep.
hindsight, I wish I would have moved faster, but at the time you were pretty happy with just growing slow and comfortably.
I
So
was.
I'd
Yep.
love to dive into that, and then we can talk about the limiting beliefs you had around team, what you've learned from that experience of waiting, and what might help other people. But let's start with you know how you made this, how you've kind of done this in a fairly simple way. And
Yeah.
like I said before the show, before we got on, I told Matt, as I tell everybody, like, look, man, I think you've done great things. You built an amazing business in life, and you're just not that special, and I'm not that special. So let's
There's
peel back.
definitely a lot of people that have done it way quicker, right, than I did, and bigger revenue numbers, bigger teams, and all that.
Yeah.
And I did shy away from that for quite a while.
Yeah.
So we can
Yeah.
talk about that.
Well,
But
yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, like if you were to kind of dumb it down and say, okay, everybody listening, let's pretend for a moment that it's actually simple. And the biggest problem we have as business owners is we make things too complicated. What do you think that path has looked like, or what would you say the path has looked like for you over these years? How did you make it easy?
yeah. Well, just to back up a step, I know you know my story, but
Yeah.
I'll give a quick recap of it. I worked as a business to business sales rep, sold copy machines for like 10 years in that industry. Great industry to learn sales. It is a sink or swim industry, and they pour a lot of training into you, but they also expect really high results. So, sticking with that industry that long, I got pretty good at business to business sales. Won trips and stuff like that. So, but there comes a certain point in that industry where you're ready to move on and do something different. I moved out of that industry and went to work for a large commercial painting company here in Indianapolis. Great organization. I'll leave them unnamed for now, but anybody in the Indy area would probably know who they are. They were going multi-state and multi-region, starting to spread out over America. When I got there, I immediately saw the opportunity. I've always been entrepreneurial, but I just never had anybody in my life that modeled how do you do that. So I didn't know how to start a business. I didn't know like even what type of business that would look like. But I understood business as a whole and how to sell. And so once I got into the painting industry, I really saw this as like, wow, this is a great opportunity. And I'd read, people like Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, until like I wore the book out. I read it so many times. And part of what he preaches in there is just being able to actually see the opportunity when life presents it to you. So the painting industry to me was like, wow, fantastic opportunity here. So I just need to dig in and learn it. And so I stuck with that company. And again, good company. I loved working there. The problem for me is it was becoming more and more corporatized, which was kind of what the copier industry had been like.
Mm-hmm.
I was sick of that. I wanted something that was going to be just a little more chill, and that's kind of what I wanted at the time. I didn't have much of a growth opportunity with them unless I would have uprooted my family and moved to a different location, probably. I wasn't interested in that. So I went in one day and just said, look, I think I want to leave, and I'm probably, unfortunately, going to start a painting business, in which they weren't real happy to hear. But we did that in a good way, made it amicable. And I tried to honor my agreements with them and just say, hey, I'm not like trying to poach all your customers or something like that. I just want to be an entrepreneur and I want to start my own small business. This is like a $20 million company, and I'm going out and starting a company that's going to do $250,000 in revenue
Right.
the first year. So it's, they saw that and, they didn't love it, but they were okay with it. And so we parted ways and I moved on. And then my mindset going into this really was, I want to keep it smaller. I want to have core relationship customers that I deal with, and I don't want to build this corporate feeling thing. I was so burnt out on that from 12, 13 years at that point in corporate environment. So I was very intentional about keeping it small and trying to build a core base of customers that I could rely on year after year to keep it simple. And it worked. That's the crazy thing is like, and it worked so well that we started growing, and then it was like, okay, this isn't simple anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where systems and processes start to kick in all over again. And you go, you can, the cool thing is anybody could probably, with some basic training and good knowledge that is readily available out here in the marketplace, go out and start a business and create $1 million painting company and make really good money and probably get their time back relatively quickly.
Yeah.
The issue is for us guys that go, okay, we did that. Now I'm not, well, there's more. Maybe I could do 1.5, maybe I could do 2, maybe I could go to 3 to 4 to 5, and that's the entrepreneurial spirit for me that's still alive. And I want to still continue to do that. And I'm learning a ton. I've still never forgot the Robert Kiyosaki thing. I'm in this to keep learning and developing myself. At this point, it's not necessarily about making more money or chasing a revenue target just for the sake of the target.
Yeah.
It's kind of about, all right, I'm being developed just individually as a leader now that I can lead other people. I can build a team. And probably the big picture goal that's way out on the horizon still, maybe 10 years or so, is to make this something turnkey that can be sold eventually. That's a lot of guys that jump in and do a painting business. That's not a mindset that they have early on. And it kind of was and kind of wasn't for me. But now it's more something that I'm adopting of like, if this is turnkey where it is a business, it's not a job for me, and I can get my time back, then it's also something that can eventually be either inherited to my kids or sold off if I want to do that. And to me, that's what's fascinating now is like, okay, what do we need to do to create a business that is functional on its own, not just dependent on one or two people to do all this, stuff to keep it floating all the time.
I think that's one of the really amazing things about business. And that's the part of our mission is like the discover what's possible part. It's like you start with, hey, I want to have a few $100,000 business. And then you have and then all of a sudden, 3 years in or whatever it was for you, 4 years, you're like, I'm doing $1 million a year, netting more profit than I ever wanted to do in revenue. And then there's like, well, what else? What else? And all of a sudden, a decade later, what you see as possible and the goals you're pursuing are far bigger than you ever thought you might be. And it just, I love the thought of, well, where am I going to be 5 more years? What am I going to see as possible 5 more years from now? Because, I can't imagine you'd be content doing nothing either.
No, probably not. And like for instance, just to make that a little bit more concrete, my wife and I got to give away over 20% of our income last year, just because we could at this point. And, we are faith-based people. I believe, in God, and we're in church and we're very involved in that. Yeah. But the painting business gives us an opportunity to use this as a vehicle to support causes that are really important to us and helping people all over the world, basically. So
cool.
That as a bigger mission to what we do now is it's more than just being, can we do a good job? Can we sell projects? It's like, okay, the whole mission behind the business gets bigger. And again, it's not just so we can make more money. It's so we can really give back to other causes and do fun stuff with this now. So it gives you a whole nother purpose behind it. It's fun.
So let me ask you this, to shift gears a little. That stage of business from 0 to about $1 million a year, when it was pretty much you, right? Mostly solo. I think if I remember right, you had one person that helped you out with some of just kind of taking the annoying residential.
Really. Yeah.
Part-time person?
Hmm.
Yeah, taking the annoying residential stuff off your plate, essentially, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but this was so in that stage of the business, because you know how I teach this, but I think about it like there's phase one where you're doing everything, and then there's phase two when it's building the team. So let's look at phase one first. How do you view, in your eyes? I think that when people have mastered something or people are really good at something, it becomes simple for them, right?
Hmm.
Like I think the commercial business probably occurs to you as pretty simple. Um,
Yeah.
in terms of like, well, it's basically this, this, and this. How do you view like that first stage of building that business? Because for you, it was pretty simple. It's like, well, this is how I get the customers, this is how I deliver. And so, can you say a little bit about just how you view those early stages? And the intention of the question is for someone who is in that stage who wants to build a commercial business, what would you say to them
Right.
to keep it simple?
Well, so yeah, I can answer that question. The funny thing for me, the first year or two, was that I intentionally stayed away from commercial
Yeah.
because I didn't have any money to produce those jobs. So I had to go out and do residential, which is not what I wanted to do. And I didn't know how to sell residential projects. I had never done a residential paint job before. So, I mean, I understood the concept, right? You're painting a house. It can't be that much different. And it wasn't, but it just was, I had no experience with that. So, the first year, 99% of what we did was residential. I think I did one commercial project our first year.
Yeah.
My non-compete kind of went away. And then the second year, we, started calling on customers, and I started from a high level philosophy. I wanted to build a base of customers that I could do repeat business with over and over. So you start to identify who are those types of customers, and then what job size range do they fall into predominantly as well. Um, that's another reason behind why commercial is so good, is because you you're in our market, the average residential job size is probably 4 grand, 5 grand, something like
Right.
that. The average commercial job size for us last year was like 16 or 17,000, and that we did quite a few small projects that dragged that down. We did a project last year that was $350,000 project. So, and this year already, we're finding a whole lot more six-figure projects that we're bidding and getting into. So we feel like that's really what we want to do. But again, how do we quantify who are those customers? Number one, are they sitting on a portfolio of real estate that constantly stuff has to be painted, right? So property management companies are a great fit for that. Some of those are commercial based, some of those are residential based for condos and whatnot. Then you have multifamily would be another bucket. School systems is another bucket. School systems have, they're sitting on a bunch of real estate, basically schools that have to get painted over and over and over again. And then who are these customers that have the budget to do that, right? So when you start to funnel that down, it gets pretty simple. We know, and these are all companies and places that you can just Google and start to say, who are the property management companies in Indianapolis, right? And it's Colliers International and Cushman Wakefield and CBRE, and then you've got residential ones and Associa and Century Management and whoever else is in that bucket. And then my business to business sales background said, okay, now you have to pick up the phone and call these people and just get in the door. It's a cold call. So I was going to offices, dropping off business cards. I was calling people on the phone, which is not fun to do, but that's how you break the ice and get in. And then you do a couple jobs for some property manager in an office, and you do a good job. And then they're like, hey, all right, this guy, I can use him again. And then they tell the other 4 property managers that they sit next to, hey, I just got this new painter. He's doing a good job. You should probably give him a chance to bid. And it just starts to compound and grow. After the first 2 years, I was not cold calling anymore. I was not knocking on doors. I wasn't trying to even find new property managers. They were just calling us because we had already started to get that momentum and the ball rolling. If you do good work and manage the job and make sure that you deliver on what you promise, it just goes. And like to a large degree, here we are 9 years later, and that's still what is happening. Now we've done work and developed a website that's decent and it ranks well from a Google perspective and all that. So we get people that just find us through that. And that's important. Everybody needs to have that. But we still have almost no marketing budget, Eric. It's crazy. Like I don't even have a marketing budget. Now, do we spend some money on marketing? Yes.
Yeah.
And do we need to think more about that? Yes, we probably do. But last year, marketing wise, we probably spent, I don't know, $6,000 or $7,000 in marketing for the whole year.
7,000 on 2 million, not bad.
Right. It's crazy. So it's fine. It's again, the philosophy worked, it's like we're finding relationship-based customers that then continue to do 50, 80, 100, $200,000 worth of work with you every year.
Right.
And then just, okay, now we did that. We've got 10 of those customers. Let's do 15 next year. Okay, we got 15 under our belt. Let's do 20 next year. And now that we've got sales reps, it's easier to do that and get a little bit more on the proactive side again,
right,
where we're actually going back out and calling on customers that we aren't doing anything with and start that process over.
Well, and I want to plant a few flags here and make sure people are hearing there's a lot of good things you're sharing here. So the first, I think, is that you started in residential to create cash flow and to not get in trouble with your non-compete. But right. I recommend that for everybody. Like, you got to start, even in our commercial program, I don't know if you know this, but we just say, hey, you got to be doing at least $400K a year in residential before you can do it. If you're under that, we just say, don't do it yet. We're not helping you. So it's you can't even do this program until you're doing 400 a year.
And, so many guys that they get stars in their eyes because they get somebody that calls them and says, hey, I've got this job. And they go out and look at it and they're like, holy crap, this is a monster opportunity.
Right.
But you don't have the experience. You don't have the money to produce the project. And I call that Russian roulette. Like, you're putting bullets in the chamber. And we still use that term internally today. When we get those calls too, still, and some of them we go, this is too many bullets in the chamber. We're a $2 million company, but I'm not doing that job. Like, we're asking for trouble. And you need to have a little humility to be able to say, this might not be the job for us, or we're not ready for this yet. So,
agreed.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a hard thing for a lot of people, even if no matter how much, I'm talking to someone saying that, or you sit there and tell someone that, they're like, yeah. Anyways, how do I bid it though? No,
right.
No.
What would your price be? Yeah. And how would what kind of subcontractor would I get? I'm like, if you don't have a subcontractor already,
I know.
I ain't finding one all of a sudden.
Just the other day, it's like, hey, I've got this huge, thing to bid. It's commercial, and I know this. I know they're new to the business. They're like, how would I bid it? I'm like, if you don't know how to bid it, you shouldn't be bidding it.
Probably shouldn't be messing with it. Yeah.
Just be patient. Don't worry. That school's going to get painted again in like 7 years. They'll get it then. Like, that's what's beautiful about this market. Like, every opportunity, don't worry. It's just coming back around. You'll get it the next time, but you got to build yourself up. So I think that's a really important thing to just underline that I want to make sure people heard. Then the second thing that I think is just beautiful is, if anybody caught this, you basically said, I did outreach for 2 years and I haven't done any marketing for 6. I have just grown my business off of the relationships I cultivated in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
And that is, and that is what that's an amazing thing. And I think it's hard for people to even understand or wrap their head around what that feels like, to just have people sending you bid requests. You're giving them the number, they're saying yes, and you're just working with a dozen customers. And what that's like. I mean, for someone who's just like churning out 15 estimates every week, all these marketing channels, to churn out all these estimates, to work with all these customers, to deal with all the numbers, compared to that, it's like, it's just night and day, and that's what appealed to me when we talked years ago, where I'm like, dude, we got to get
right. And so once you've got that base customer set up, your closing ratio is way higher with them.
Exactly.
They may still be required to go get 2 more bids, but it's funny how many times they'll go find some jackleg or somebody that they know is going to be sky high. Like they'll literally call a GC and say, I need a painting bid from you because they know it's going to be too high. So that way they can make sure and get you approved. It's like, it's crazy. Like the stuff that people will do once you've got a good relationship and you've proven yourself. And, we've done 6-figure projects where we had 60% margin on the job. And they're not all like that, but it just, when you take care of people, people want to take care of you. And you can build a business like that in the painting world. That's what's beautiful about it. Residentially, there's good work out there, but that's what's so different. It's just not the same. Are you going to repaint people's houses again? Yes, but it's not.
In 20 years, you might do it 4 times. You might paint for them 4 times.
Right.
This just occurred to me that I wanted to bring forth is just the math a little bit on, all right, 2 years of outreach over 8 years leads to 2 million. If it was another 2 years, another 2 years, another 2 years of just always doing that outreach, that builds into a huge amount of business. So I think that's important to just wrap your heads around. If you're watching this, is the opportunity is just enormous.
Well, you were talking about the numbers wise, 2 years of outreach, ending up into at the end of 8 years going to 2 million.
Well, yeah,
the website helps with that too.
Well, if it was like 2 years of outreach and then nothing, if I just keep compounding that, which is I know where you're heading now, right? Where you're starting to see what you mentioned to me the other day is like, I see 20 million as a possibility. It makes sense. I've gotten 2 million with little outreach. So the third thing I wanted to underline from everything you shared was just the simplicity of you just find the people who are the ideal clients and reach out to them. So I'd be curious if you'd be willing to share, like, what's that phone call look like? And what does that process look like leading up to getting a bid? It's not like you call someone up and they're like, yeah, I got one to bid. So what does that relationship building look like to your first opportunity with a property manager or a HOA or whoever it may be?
So that's what it's funny to me, coming out of the copier industry, there was like a six stage process that we would take a customer through, and that we would call it the initial presentation. So when we're calling somebody, we don't want to bid. We don't want their response to be, yes, I have something you could bid. Here's the RFP, or here's the scope of work. Go look at this building for me. We want to discover first off who are you? What kind of property do you manage? What kind of annual budget do you think you have for painting? And we're really diving into, are you a good fit for us as a client? And then are we a good fit for you? Are you doing projects that are way out of our wheelhouse that we can't support? We don't want to go through 6 RFPs to figure that out. Let's have a conversation, right? And just dig into this. So really what we're pushing for is, can I stop by your office for a 15-minute presentation about who we are? People hate that in the painting industry because they think there's so much low-hanging fruit too. And that's what I found out when I first got into the industry. That's the process I was used to of selling, is let's have a conversation first. Then, yes, we want to look at your business or your jobs. In this industry, so many property managers are just running around with like a chicken with their head cut off, and they're responding. They're professional firefighters. They're just in reactive mode constantly. And asking for that, they're like, huh? Like, I don't even get the point. You're a painter. So they may eventually respond back and say, here's a bid request, right? We really try to dwell on this, though, and say we want to get to know you and your business and find out, are we actually a good fit for you? And then if not, hey, no problem. We can point you in the direction of somebody that maybe is, or at least now you know who we are. And if you have the right kind of a request for us, now 90% of the time, are we going to be the right fit? Yes, right? But it's just a due diligence approach, and we're showing right off the bat we're trying to be proactive. And That's going to come through later on when we actually produce a job. We're doing the same thing. We're keeping them updated. We're following through on what we said we were going to. We make their job easy, but we can't do that if we don't understand their business first. So it's like this: if we understand your business and how you operate and what you need, that's not always in the paint scope, right? Um, then we can probably create a solution that's actually going to fit what you need. And that's, yeah, everybody can put two coats on your building, but if we understood, oh, you need to move these cars, we got to watch out for this. You've got these residents that are going to complain, blah, blah, blah. That's the kind of stuff that it's better to know that up front. So we push for that initial meeting really hard when we're reaching out to people. We don't always get it. It's not a perfect silver bullet, but it does help start the conversation. And so many painting companies, I think, are just asking for, can we get on your bid list? Can we,
Yeah.
can we get your next RFP? Whatever. It's a differentiator right from the beginning that this company is different. Nobody else is asking that question, right? So once you sit down and have the meeting, it needs to be conversational tone, right? We're not trying to hard close anybody on anything. We're just saying, tell me about your business. Let me give you an overview of legacy painting. Here's how many years in business we've had so far. Here's the kind of clients that we serve. Where do you think you fall in that mix? And then, okay, yeah, what's your average project size? Um, do you need to get three bids? Um, is there anything different or special about what you're doing? Do you already have a relationship with somebody? Great. Who is that? If we know who we're competing against, sometimes that just gives us, all right, we know we need to do this really well to beat these guys. Competitive
Yeah.
analysis type of
Yeah.
stuff. So we just look at it like that. Again, that kind of comes through business to business sales training of doing some analysis, having higher level conversation first, and then we're going to keep funneling down into our goal in the whole process is we want to be a consultant for the customer. When property managers are not experts on painting, and most painters that have seen more than 5 RFPs probably already figured that out. Like you get something and then you're like, this doesn't tell me what I need to know. This is not a good paint system. They're just regurgitating something from some previous project and thinking, I just need to get some bids, right? So we want to come alongside them and build trust so that way we can guide that whole process from the very beginning to the very end. And if they've put the trust in us to say, hey, Legacy goes out and inspects all of our buildings, they're going to help us understand what paint system do we need on here. Are you trying to get a 5-year paint cycle out of this, a 7-year, a 10-year, whatever? Then we can craft a solution for that. And then, okay, if we've been able to be in from the beginning to the end and set the whole process, are we going to lose some of those bids after we put in all that footwork? Yeah. But when most people see that you've gone the extra mile and have done the due diligence and aren't just, you know, throwing bids out to people, they want to help you out and they want to work with you because you're trying to help them. So that's the goal. That's the sales
You got to
process of
change
what
your
we're trying to
mindset
accomplish.
from residential to that, because residential, you're playing a numbers game in many ways. This is like, no,
Yeah,
no, no. You got to remember, this relationship could be worth $1 million to you. So take your time. You don't need to
exactly.
win them all. You need to win a few of those, and you're in business. Um, so imagine I'm a sales rep. And actually, one thing I'll say first is, you can hear if you're listening, like Matt, you've obviously got some expertise around this business to business sales process. But what I want to highlight for people listening is don't let that stop you or overwhelm you, because you don't
Yeah,
need to be Matt to be way better than everybody else. Like you said, a lot of people are just, hey, can I be on your bid list? Hey, can I be on your bid list? And you know what happens to those people is they don't get on the bid list, right? If all you did is push for a conversation and ask the questions that Matt has just said, that alone will be far more effective for you than than what most people are doing. And so if I'm your sales guy and I'm going out there, I'm reaching out, doing cold outreach, Matt, and I come to you and I say, Matt, I'm not getting any success right now. I've called 10 property managers this week and I don't have one conversation yet. What expectations would you set straight with me?
I would say that's typical and part of being in business. And this is, if we're doing commercial painting, this is business to business sales. That's what this is. It is not untypical in business to business sales that you're going to have to touch a customer 6, 7, 8, 10 times to get the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
If you understand that right up front, that when you get 2 no's, you go, okay, I'm 2 into 10 right now.
Yeah.
Until I get like 10 no's, then I know that this is probably all right. I'm going to move on to somebody else. So it's just systematic. When you create a list and do follow-ups and everything, that it's just a numbers game at the end of the day. And not while you don't want to treat them like that once you get the opportunity, you want to treat them with respect and it to be personable, and you're solving a business problem for them and helping them. The initial part of cold calling is just numbers. It's like, hey, I know if I want to get 4 appointments set up with property management companies, I'm going to have to make this many calls to get this many connections and then finally get a coffee or finally get a chance to walk into an office. And just don't beat yourself up on getting a few no's right off the bat. What we find is it's a lot of times one email a month, just keeping in front of those people. Once you get that, you're not driving them crazy. You're not blowing up 3 times a week until they just block you. But it's just enough to say, hey, okay, I know it's probably not the right time. I'm eventually going to be there at the right place at the right time if I'm consistent. And if I do that, then all of a sudden, okay, got the opportunity. We had the meeting. Now I'm on the bid list. I'm starting to see RFPs,
What are you sending someone? I just know this is another question I would have if I was listening. What are you sending to people if you're doing 10 outreaches? What I know you're not doing is making 10 of the same phone calls. Hey, Matt here with Legacy Painting, just seeing if I can get that meeting. A month later, hey, Matt again with Legacy Painting, just want to see if I want to get that meeting. Hey, Matt here with Legacy Painting. Right? So now people are like, well, what are you doing so that it's not that? Right. And it's also not doing that as a call, then a text, then an email. Like, how are you doing? What's that kind of look like, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
Okay. So I'll try to bring up a few examples. One thing that we did this spring that was really outreach oriented is this winter, we went out and just Google searched every school corporation within 30 miles of Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. Because it's a government entity at the school, they list most of if you dig around on that website, you can find who is the person you need to talk to. I won't throw the title out right now, but you're probably looking for somebody in maintenance, director of operations. Maybe if you could get a meeting with like a CFO or the person that sits right under them, those are the kind of people that it would be nice to get a meeting with. If you go scrub around and look, you can put that list together. Now we do a constant contact email, and so we'll set up a campaign through that where over the course of 6 weeks they're going to get 6 emails, and then we can see the response rate. We can see, okay, we're getting a 60% open rate on these emails that go out. That's pretty good, and it's just dripping on them, right? Legacy painting, legacy painting, legacy painting. And we're building up through the spring. When we get into May, every one of these people start to go, summer's right around the corner. I got 12 weeks to get all my painting stuff done. And now all of a sudden it's a hot item for them. They've pushed you off for 2 months, but now we keep dripping. All of a sudden this week, we got 2 phone calls back. Okay. So,
literally this week you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice. And we've been doing that for a few weeks now. So that was something that we tried this year. We also went to every one of those admin offices and dropped off a little packet. If we had phone numbers, which we can at least get the office phone number at the administration building, we are calling and just saying, hey, I'd like to speak with whoever, Brian Drummond or whatever. And then you're probably not going to get them on the phone. Every once in a while you do, and you get a lucky opportunity there. But if not, I still leave a voicemail and just say, hey, I dropped something off at your office the other day about legacy. We'd like to work with you this spring to see if we can bid some of your projects. So now we've made different touches from different avenues. We've done a couple phone calls. We stopped by the office and dropped off a little here's who legacy painting is packet. We've got an email campaign that just drips on them over and over. Those touches add up. And after 6, 7, 8, 10 touches, you'd be surprised all of a sudden you're going to start getting a couple callbacks. So, but everybody wants it to be quick and easy, a one and done thing. And this is old school sales that I'm talking about. Everybody wants to have your website somehow performs, or I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And those are places to get business. I'm not saying they're not, right? But those are transactional sales for the most part. And what we're doing as a process is more set up to be relationship oriented. Yeah. And it's just a different way that you have to reach out to that customer and start the process. Sometimes we get lucky too. And let's say we know somebody that's in a different trade and we're able to piggyback off of them of like, hey, we could share some leads or share contact information, or maybe say, hey, I've got a guy that I go to church with. He sells to schools. That's his whole job. He sells office chairs, desks, bleacher systems, all this gear into school systems. And I was able to sit down with him a couple of times and just go, what's the best way to reach these people? And he said, old school sales. So I was like, okay, that's what I know how to do. But
I mean, I'm with you, man. It's people. I mean, in Painting Business Pro, I have people all the time like, Eric, what are you doing for marketing? I'm like, the same things I'm telling everyone, and it's all the basic stuff. You just got to get good at it and hammer it. That's it. Yeah. There's no golden bullet.
No, silver bullet. You will find sometimes with property management groups, you're going to find low hanging fruit out there. It's there. And that's what's beautiful about this industry is it's not like this giant Everest to climb where it's going to take 2 years to finally crack a customer. No way. Like we went to a couple meetings this winter, got introduced to a couple people with a big commercial property management company. We have already bid $500,000 of projects with them this spring. And we're just getting, the surface is just scratched with that company. Yeah. This has all happened in the last 3 months. So there's plenty of low hanging fruit out there. Just don't get frustrated if somebody doesn't call you back right away. Like how you differentiate yourself is that you do have like this constant drip that you're staying in front of those people. And you've got to figure out how to do that because it's different than residential sales. Residential is lead services, your website and Facebook, and you're trying to get people to call you, and then you just somehow keep up with the leads that are coming in the door. Commercial it's just a different sales process, right? Yep. So that's what we're setting the stage for a little bit here. And then what we've learned too is like hiring the right person to get in that role that understands that. It's tricky because you need somebody that understands business to business sales. A lot of times you're promoting your guy that's come out of residential that's killed it. Well, what they've done is responded to leads. They're a reactor. They're not necessarily a proactive person. It's a different skill set, and sometimes those people don't always transition over great, it's just they have to learn it, and it's different. So you can't set expectations for somebody either right away of like, you're going to somehow miraculously bring in $2 million in commercial work this year. You have to really think long game when it comes to commercial sales. At least that's what I do. Yes, there are hot markets where you can do 2 or 3 million overnight, right? That could happen, but it's not the way I built my business. Mine was more of a crockpot method, and it's worked. So.
And what I love about your story too, Matt, is I think it's the more likely way that someone's going to build a business. We mostly hear about the overnight stuff because that's the flashy, that's the shit that gets attention, but it sets a bad expectation for people on what it looks like. So even on this show, I'm like, I want to keep finding people who weren't that, and have built an amazing business, because it's the more common thing that's going to happen. Is like it's slow and
Yeah.
steady, and you build upon your success until things start to get really exciting.
Yeah. Well, and when you're first starting out and you hit 300 or 500,000 in revenue, that's still pretty
Yeah,
exciting. Like, and you all of a sudden you've made more money than you ever made anywhere else, and you're like, holy shit, I did this in the painting business. It's
right.
like unbelievable, right?
Yeah,
But commercial, you got to just think long game with it. If you
yeah,
do that, it does pay off. But you got to have I would say a good start is, where do I want to be 3 years from now commercially? Not just setting a 1 year goal, because that first year is going to be your toughest one to break in. And year two and year three is where you actually start to see the fruit of your efforts.
hmm,
So if you're hiring somebody for the first time and you're saying, hey, we want to go hot and heavy in commercial, that's good. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying don't necessarily expect, unless they have already got commercial experience and they're bringing a book of business with them or something like that. It You're not gonna, Rome wasn't built in a day.
yeah,
I think it just doesn't happen overnight for most people.
yeah,
So
yeah.
give it time. Yeah.
Um, okay, so transitioning to this next phase of business, some of the notes I had was building a team. So some self-limiting beliefs you had some resistance to building a team. Something had you actually change your mind about that because you're doing it now, and now you've changed your
Mm-hmm.
tune and said, "I wish I'd have done it sooner." What can you
Mm-hmm.
share about that whole experience?
Oh man. Um, I was so just tired of corporate culture
Yeah,
that I resisted everything about it. And I was just like, I want to keep it smaller and simple. And I did that. And I held on, and I stopped investing in myself too. Like, that was a big thing. When I was selling for other companies, I was always reading books and doing self improvement, working on stuff. And I'd kind of stopped doing that. So I got stagnant as a person, and I got stuck in an ideology of keeping it small and simple for a while. That was not a bad thing. I needed that, I think, for my own mental health and everything else, just to settle into something that felt comfortable without constantly having this corporate ideology of, you got to do 20% more next year. You got to do 20% more
yeah,
next year. And this, I call it the hamster wheel of corporate sales. It's
yeah,
like, it's never enough.
yeah,
Last month doesn't count anymore. And we're a little bit doing that now, but I was just burnt out on that, and I wanted some sanity and health again. So um, the problem was, if you do a good job for customers, they tell people, and here we are. You outgrow that after
often
a while.
is we did a good job.
So at a certain point, you have to make a decision. Am I going to start telling people, no, we don't want your business, and just say, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do $1 million a year.
Yeah,
What comes with that territory is, if I want to do it all myself, I'm working 60 hours a week to keep up with all of this. I have
right,
no help. I can't take time off if I want to. I can't go go on a vacation with my family
yeah,
anytime. 10 months out of the year, I can only go in January when
right,
nothing's going on. And it's like, you're very limited at that point. So I started to realize, and my wife made me realize this too. Hey, Matt, you're working way too much. Hey, why don't you turn this into an opportunity to hire people and try to get your time back? And you've been preaching that for years. Like, I've resisted it for a long time because of this. For me, it was baggage I was bringing
yeah,
into the way I started my business, right? So I've had to deal with that baggage and just say, all right, we can do this in a healthy way. We can have structure and what I would have called in the past corporate methodologies of standard operating procedures and all this stuff, without it being so rigid and dogmatic that we're burning people out and making them feel like they're just a number,
hmm,
right? So how do you do that with your core values? You do that with your company culture. You do that just by being a team and helping people out. So I was just nervous about hiring people and coaching people and doing all that, because I had never been in a management role really before. I just been a really good sales rep. And so this all seemed strange and foreign. And I didn't know if I really wanted to put the work in
Yeah.
to learn a whole new skill set. Um, the business forced me to do that though, because we got to a revenue point where it was either tell customers we can't service you,
Yep.
and or do I want to work, this many hours all the time for forever? It just got to a point where it was like, no, I think I better learn how to hire teams and take care of people and let them help me. So we did that. And we did that at a point where we were really in catch up mode, though. And so, really, the last 3 years has been me still filling in holes constantly and wearing multiple hats. It has gotten better. I'm not working as much as I was, and I'm not as burnt out all the time, probably, as I was there for a while. Um, but it has still been tricky. We're learning and growing. And so, um, once we got people hired, and it seems like as soon as we did that, then we would jump 25% growth immediately the next year. And then it was like we're right back in the same situation all over again. And I need to rehire, and I need to, get new systems and processes. And that's still very much to some degree what we're doing right now. So part of what we did to figure that out,
Well,
and
hold
I
on.
know
Let me
this is
just
a very,
interject one thing. That's
yeah,
just a news flash for everybody where you're like, hey, to some degree, we're still doing that right now. I think that's one thing that people tend to have bad expectations about when they're building their company is that there's some day you get to where you don't have to do stuff anymore. Oh, once I have a team, it's like, no, now you just got more. The bigger the business gets, the more systems you need to build, the more things you need to manage. And if you want to build a good company, all those systems need to continue to be improved. So that becomes a very big task. And how do you get out of that task? Well, eventually you need to have people who do that task. And so there is a place you can get to where you are no longer involved and everything is taken care of in the business. But I think it's just worth mentioning to people that it's like, guys, there's work to do here.
yeah. There, and so we just had an admin meeting with my office administrator and operations guy
Mhm.
right before we jumped on this call. And 30 minutes of that meeting was, how do we have this spreadsheet do, like, it worked great for us the last 2 years, but now it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't read the way we want it to. We need it to be able to handle multiple jobs at the same time, not just one or two. And so we had a 30-minute conversation about a spreadsheet. And
Yeah.
it's like, again, yeah, just like what you just said, you're going to always be honing these systems and processes to get it to do what you want it to do. It's unless you stay stagnant and don't grow, um, you're always going to be working on this
But
stuff.
then me
Yeah.
or Matt, we're going to eat your lunch because we're going to keep getting better.
Somebody is, yeah. I mean, there's guys out there way bigger than us here in Indy that are,
Oh, yeah.
we're coming up. But anyway, I think we're all dealing with the same stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah. And there's just more. I remember in 2019, we were like, we kind of created a whole new future for the company. We're like, all right, we're going to do this right. We're not going to do this fast anymore. We're going to do it right. And so we're not going to expand this year. We're not going to focus on growth. We're not going to open new locations. We're not doing any of that. We're going to get these 4 or 5 systems down first. And so we're
Mm-hmm.
going to do that all 2019. And then in 2020, we can start to grow again. And we
Mm.
got done with 2019 and we're like, not even close. 2020, same thing. Run it back. We got to the end of 2020 and we're like, same thing. And we just started the growth in terms of bringing on some more partners a year ago, 2023. I mean, it took 4 years. We at the outset we're like, it'll take us 1 year to get these systems and processes dialed in where we think they're exceptional, and it took us 4 years. I mean, I
Wow.
think that just we probably could have done it faster, but I don't really know how. There's just a lot of work there to make something really, really great. But
Yeah.
that becomes the advantage. I mean, on the other side when someone's coming in new and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to go do this and this." It's like, dude, you're not seeing a lot of the challenges along the way. You're
Right.
not going to
Yeah.
see the spreadsheet that you have to iterate for the fifth time.
Yeah. And a lot of that is just scalability. That's probably what you guys were dealing with. It's like, okay, when you're doing 2 jobs a week, when you first start out with one crew, you don't even have to think about it. You just do it out of your head. But as soon as that expands to you're running 5 crews and you got all these different jobs, and somebody has to do job costing on this to make sure you're hitting your numbers, and somebody's got to fill out a report for this to make sure that the subs get paid, and all this stuff that before I was writing checks out of my pickup truck to a sub and handing it to them on Friday. That doesn't work anymore.
No, you don't hand
So
out checkbooks to 8, to 6 people on your team.
no, yeah. So anyway, but where we're at today, like we look at every year, we have this off season. December, January, and February is where we turn back in and really work. We try to say, what are the top 2 or 3 priorities? What are we going to work on right now to implement to get ready for the next season? This past year, we invested heavily in Monday.com
Yep.
and getting everything on one page, basically for sales leads as they come in, and then they go through our sales process. When that's one project, it goes onto a job board for production.
Did you hire
and it
someone
goes
to help you build that out?
We did.
Yep.
Yeah. We hired a consultant that has already done this for painting contractors. His name's Scott Lawler.
Yeah, Scott's my partner on the commercial course. I mean,
I found out.
Yeah.
I got connected to him because of you, so
Yeah.
he helped us with that. Yeah. So Scott's just been a great guy. Like he'll just let me call him up sometimes and say, "What do you think about this?" And he'll give me 10 minutes of his time. So that's been nice.
He's an incredible resource. I built the commercial program with him. He runs webinars every month, and he runs the mastermind for it. I've had him for our company as a retainer consultant on commercial. He's been invaluable. I couldn't say enough good things about Scott. He's an amazing guy.
And we really got connected to him because of PBP. But then we took it to this next level, and I invested through him to do Monday.com. So that's been good. Our business model is a little different than what they're used to working with because they predominantly set this up for residential companies. So we had them tweak a lot of stuff for us, but it's functioning pretty good at this point, and we're using it, getting everybody in our team in there so they actually keep the information's only as good as the people that keep it up to date, right? But it does keep us all on one platform on the same page, and that's good.
Well, and I think you obviously spent a pretty big investment into this. There was a lot of time, a lot of work, hired a consultant to do it, but that's one of those things that, like, if you're going to scale, which your plans are to scale, you have to have that infrastructure in place to scale in a healthy way.
Right. And probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a point. You threw out a number earlier that we had, it's still a dream out there, 20 million. We might be there in 10 years. But more than likely, these systems that we're setting up now will come to a ceiling at some point where it's like Monday.com won't cut it for us once we get to a certain level.
Yeah.
It'll be nice for a long time, but we'll have to transition into something completely different at some point. And that, again, I don't even know what that is today, but I know Monday probably won't cut it forever. So, but we also worked pretty hard in the off season. We read the Traction book by Gino Wickman, and we saw a lot of good stuff in there. And I know a lot of paint companies have used that to help set up good meeting structures, good company culture, mission, vision, values, all that kind of stuff. So we were like, we're going to do this. We're going to talk about mission, vision, and values. We're going to talk about company culture. We're going to talk about clear job descriptions and know who's in the right roles. Because we read that, it helped us identify we did not have a good integrator, the person that takes the ideas from the visionary and then goes, how are we going to do this in the company? Yeah. We didn't have anybody in our team like that could do that. And so we hired an operations manager because it became crystal clear that is the big hole in our organization right now. And I knew this guy from previous work experience, and he already had a great resume for it. And it just fell into place. I think we got super lucky. So I don't have any words of wisdom on hiring the right person for that role. Read the book and work with people and look at job descriptions.
The
But
lesson
we
from
got lucky
the
there.
lesson to take is I don't think you're gonna. I'll say this in a different way. If you really want to create a powerful mission, vision, values, and culture, it's very beneficial to have a third party involved in that.
Hmm.
They can facilitate and help make sure that it's co-created, and it's not,
Yeah.
it's not just like the employees just agreeing but not feeling any ownership in it. That third party really facilitates that it's a co-created future, and when you create that future as a team and they feel like they've got some ownership in that future, not company ownership, but like, I wrote it, I contributed to that, I
Hmm.
created it, it's got so much more power than,
Yes, it
so
does. Yeah. I was self aware enough when I read the book to go, I love this, but I don't know how to implement all of it. And we've actually found a consultant here in Indianapolis that walks all kinds of companies, not just painting companies, but all kinds of companies through the EOS or the traction process
yeah.
to go top to bottom through your business, evaluate, and then go, here's what you need to, where you start taking the EOS model and reformatting your whole business structure on it. So they would, we spent $5,000 a day to go into, we took our front office team, our sales reps, operations people and admin and myself, and sat in a room together with a consultant who walked us through the whole process, took us through the exercises, broke it down, and then put it back on us to say, now you fill in all the blanks, right? Now you know the structure. You put Legacy's DNA on this now. And so we went through 2 sessions of that. We've got stuff up in the office in here now. You can see that big yellow sticky back in the background. We got about 10 of those up on the wall that talk about all the stuff that we discovered and learned and that we wrote down. We still have a couple of sessions to go. We had to push pause on it because the season's getting kicked off.
Yeah.
But I saw a big, it gave everybody in our company a common vision.
Yep.
And a common culture, and they all felt bought into it at that point too. It wasn't just, this is a job that I show up to and I get paid this much. I think that was huge for us. The other part was it gave us like a common language to speak when it came to problem solving and issues and whatnot. So that way we were dealing with those and we're on the same page in how we're going to talk about this stuff. And then it just gives you some good processes too, like how to run your meetings internally more efficiently,
Yeah.
make sure that you stay on task and you make first things first and kind of prioritize what's going to be important. So
Yeah.
we got a lot out of that.
Well, and I think it points to
We have a lot to
everything you're
go.
sharing. What's that?
We still have a lot to go though. Yeah.
It's the beginning. It's the next. It gives some people some insight into what it starts to look like at this level. When you start to, I say phase one is where you're doing everything yourself. Phase two is when you're building and putting your key team in place. And now, you're at the spot where I've got my key team in place, and there's kind of like I'm playing with, like, there's like a phase three where it's co-creating a future and empowering leadership, because
Yeah.
there is a point in business where I cannot be the one because it takes more than one at this stage. Like, I'm becoming
Right.
less and less important in my company. I'm not the guy that moves the needle on things, like, which is a weird, experience, but it's like, I got
Mm-hmm.
to start to empower a team,
Mm-hmm.
because the empowering your team is going to be 5 times more impactful than you trying to do it. It's the next move. It's like, I got to build a
Yeah.
team. Okay, now I got to build leaders.
Yep.
And this
Yep.
is a lot of what it looks like: getting the CRM in place, like the structure and the actual structure to scale, bringing in some consultants or coaches to help build that culture and develop leaders and create that kind of alignment that is fundamental for a leadership team to have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for sure just the beginning, but it's kind of
Yeah.
always just the beginning.
I think what we're doing right now is really setting us up for success for the next 5 years for
Yeah.
sure, and giving us the right culture and parameters to work within to scale, continue to scale. And then that's probably going to be in 5 years from now, we stop and reevaluate it. And at this point, 5 years from now, it will just be more of a leadership team,
Yeah.
not, we probably won't have our sales reps coming to meetings like that anymore, but um, we'll still want input from everybody. But part of scaling, I didn't want to ever scale just because of the numbers and the revenue. I wanted to do it for the right reason. And I think going through this EOS process and evaluating what's important to us as a business and ownership too, why are we doing this? What's our why? Now it is like, okay, yeah, we want to scale as much as we can because we've clearly identified that. I think self-limiting belief for me is I was always, I grew up in a blue collar home. I didn't know anybody that owned their own business growing up. Um, Vacation was going camping, like stuff, which I got nothing against camping. I still love that. But it was like, how can we get away for a week the cheapest possible way, right? Because that was how I grew up. And it wasn't like we couldn't eat and we didn't,
Yeah.
I had mom and a dad and a good solid home and all that stuff, but we didn't have extra. So because of that, I had a mentality of thinking, once you start making a certain amount of money, like that's going to change you, or that's going to make you like rich people don't care about anybody, or just on and on and on. What that means, and inside you start capping like, well, I don't want to grow the business past this because that makes me one of those people, right?
Yeah.
I think that's been good for me in the this business has helped me develop of like, okay, yeah, financially, we're probably in the 1% at this point of from an income standpoint, and all this other stuff. But that doesn't mean that
You're
I'm
suddenly a bad
somehow, I don't,
person.
yeah, and I don't care about people or whatever. It's like all these weird things that we come up with when we just
Yeah.
don't understand. The other part too is though, you do need to have a plan. The painting business in a whole, there's so much opportunity. It's easy to make money. And I think a lot of guys, we see this in our subs a lot. I'm sure you've seen it 1,000 times, Eric. People don't know how to handle that money when it comes into their life. And it starts to put a magnifying glass on the best parts of you and the worst parts of you. Like if I'm just making up something here, but if you went out and like to, do some nefarious things and maybe this, that, or the other once in a while, well, now all of a sudden that you've got an extra 50 grand in your pocket, you're like, I could do that every weekend. It's like, that's not a good idea. Like before you make money and get into
Yeah.
this business, you also need to understand and have an idea of like, how am I going to handle potential wealth? And
What am
am
I
I
doing it for?
am I ready as a person to handle that? Because the whole more money, more problems is true. Like it's
Or
easy to
could be
get
at
carried
least.
away, and
Could be at least. Yeah.
yeah, if you don't have a plan where how you deal with that stuff. But I'm probably getting off on a tangent here.
That's okay.
Anyway,
I think, a couple things to wrap up with. I mean, that's all great. I think it's all really relevant, really relatable to everybody. And, um, we talk every few years and it's like always new cool things happening. And I think it's the exciting journey of entrepreneurship. And, the why starts to get beyond you because it's like, well, here I am with my business. It's going really good. Now what? It's like, well, why wouldn't I just keep growing it? More jobs for people, better company. I can do it the way I want to do it. I can make more money and I can
right.
give back more to my church, my community. I can, give more to my kids. I can do good things with this, including like the business can provide things to people. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really cool just to hear the journey. Hope it's been valuable for people. The thing I'd want to end on would just be, I'm curious your thoughts on this. Do you think who if in the world of painting contractors, how many of them should expose themselves and go after commercial work?
Mm. Well, um, that's a good question. I haven't thought about it like who should and who shouldn't. I think the principle that you talked about, you need to be doing a certain amount of revenue first before you get into commercial makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
If you if you don't have any experience with commercial, you probably need to build a certain base in house painting first before you start to go after commercial. And then you need to understand, you probably should take a course, get some training and ideas of it because it's a different sales cycle. It's a different customer compared to a residential. It doesn't mean your painters can't paint the surfaces, right? It's
Yep.
just understanding the needs of that client.
Well, I always joke, that's the one thing that's the same about residential and commercial is applying paint to a surface, and everything else is different.
Yeah, yeah, like very true. As long as America as a whole, just real big high level view here, as long as we see population growth, which we continue to see, we're not one of these countries. If you look at demographics and everything, there's some countries in the world that their demographics are going stagnant and backwards right now. America is still growing, and it's growing really pretty rapidly compared to a lot of developed nations. What that means is there's always going to need to be more houses, more commercial buildings, more apartments. All this stuff is going to continue to be built. As long as population trend is going up, all the infrastructure has to go up with it, right? Well, that just means there's more opportunity and more opportunity. We've seen a ton more competitiveness in Indianapolis over the last 5 years in commercial painting.
Yeah.
Because I could go back to the level of competition when I worked for the previous company and then just in my own journey too, and see there was so much low hanging fruit. It was easier. The companies weren't as professional. They weren't good at their sales process or presentations.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody just continued to get better, and there's more companies piling into this space. But I think we're a good testament to the fact that there still is a lot of low hanging fruit. It's not difficult to grow at 20% a year if you are a well run business. I'm old enough that I remember 2008 and what that did in several industries. So that was a very hot market leading up to 2008 with housing and commercial real estate too. I did not work in the painting industry in 2008, but I started working for this other company right after that. So it was close enough that I heard all the stories. And there were tons of companies piling in because they saw it as a hot market and easy money and, bigger job sizes and all the stuff. And when 2008 hit, it washed a lot of the weak hands out.
Yeah.
And then you had some companies that survived it and then flourished again after things started to come back. I almost wonder if that's where we're getting. I don't know. I'm not some market analyst and magician and know the future, but it's part of me wonders, are we starting to get close to that again? Because I'm seeing a lot of companies piling in, and good for them. I want people to be successful. I think there's plenty of opportunity for people, but if you're going to come into commercial, have a system and a process. Don't just be one of those guys that when things do start to get tight and get tough again, that you're the weekend that gets washed out. Because at that point, when stress gets put on everybody, the good companies are going to survive, right? It might hurt a little bit, but they're not going to be upside down and just going out of business. Make sure that you've got good systems and processes and marketing and people that know how to do their job well. And then you're going to be in position then when the rebound happens that you're gobbling up, market share again too. So
yeah, it's like
your question was,
have a good foundation to get into it. And if you're going to get into it the right way, not like a quick money grab or something, because that's not what's sustainable anyway.
Right. Yeah. As far as who should be getting into it, I know that was your original question. I mean, if that is appealing to you of the long view of working with clients and the payoff being once they're yours, you get this return revenue that keeps coming back and you're not paying for leads constantly. You're potentially much less marketing dollars and all that, but you have to put in the sweat equity to get there.
Yeah.
If that's your mentality, and you're willing to get systems and processes down and then hire a good team to help you implement all that. This is a great business to do this in. If you want to be like me for a while there and just do it all yourself, yeah, you could do that too, but you're going to hit the ceiling and you're going to burn out. So I think that's the big lesson in my life is
Yeah.
I wish I would have recognized that a little bit quicker and started the process of team building sooner.
Right. Because it's not
But
just if you would have noticed it, if you would have done it a year earlier, it wouldn't have saved you a year, it would have saved you two. Because
right.
you had that much
Yeah.
bigger of a hole to climb out of also. It wasn't
Right.
just the year, it compounds a little when when you don't do what your
Yeah.
business needs.
And you got to, when your wife's yelling at you because she thinks you're never home and all you care about is selling the next paint job and all this stuff, it's like, that's not necessarily true, but I understand.
Yeah.
So don't put yourself in that position. I've been through that, and it's, don't let the business wear out your family, and don't let money become a big problem that it puts you in a divorce scenario and all this. Like, be get into it for the right reasons and set up systems and processes so you can do it healthy. Your home life is good. That's important. And then the way you deal with your money and finances is you're on the same page with your significant other. That's important. Um, if you're just running hard all the time and chasing a revenue goal and thinking about that's going to solve all my problems, it won't. Like it can actually cause a lot more. So, um, I was 40 years old when I started my own business. I had some life experience at that point, sales experience, and at least I wouldn't say I had it all figured out by any means, but I had enough self realization at that point to realize if I would have done this when I was 25,
Yeah.
I would have effed it up real bad, probably. My head would have been this big, my ego would have been out of control. My marriage probably wouldn't have survived it. Just so I think to any younger guy that's hearing this story out there too, like take your time, play the long game. There's plenty of business out there.
That's
Yeah.
good advice, not just for commercial. That's just good business advice. And I
Yeah.
think that's what I've liked about how you build your business is like steady, not erratic. I see a lot of people try to go, I think more often the mistake people make is I try to go too hard, too big, too fast rather than someone who's going slow. I think you're
Mm-hmm.
better off making the mistake you made than the other side,
Yeah.
because
Maybe.
it
Yeah.
can be so costly when you're doing that. It's like, and I think for anybody, it's like, which side am I on? Right? Am I more likely to go too big, too hard, too fast and be impatient? Or am I too conservative? Knowing first rule is know thyself. And once you know, okay, how do I move more to the middle? Because it's unlikely that you're at the perfect equilibrium right now, listening to this. You're one or the
Right.
other. I was too
Probably.
hard, too big, too fast, and it cost me dearly. I mean, it cost me years and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And you can see, I don't know how you put a dollar figure on it, but it's cost you years being on that side. So for anybody, I think that's a good lesson,
Mm-hmm.
to take
Yeah.
away from the conversation.
And so the big thing in that is you need a mentor. You need somebody that can coach you. So, if you're wanting to get into commercial, and I'm not, this isn't a plug. It doesn't have to be PVP or whatever. PVP is a good source for it, but even just in life in general, like you may want to get in a business group somewhere locally that you can go to once a month and have other people that own businesses that aren't painting businesses that can just there's groups like that out there. Search that out and like pour into yourself through coaches and people that can help you, and they're gonna. I would say that's a big part of this whole business that most people don't get or understand. They just think about numbers, revenue,
Yeah.
leads, get the right crew in place and paint it. And you need a good team around you that's going to give you some wisdom and
Yeah.
help you see pitfalls way before you even get to them, so you don't
Yeah.
make the mistakes that you've made and some of the ones that I've made too. Like
Yeah.
that's what I'm learning more and more at this stage of the game.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, there's just an abundance of resources available. And I know you see it, I see it. It's most so underutilized, the
mhm.
resources and support that's out there and available to people. What I was laughing about when you said get a coach or mentor, I was like, yeah, but more importantly, make sure you listen to them when you get them.
Well, right. Yeah.
That's half the battle, man. A lot of people get a coach. As a coach and mentor, I can say a lot of people have me. Most don't listen. And the listening part really helps.
I'm guilty of that, right?
Yeah.
So I've hired people and then been like, what? Like, this doesn't even make any sense what you're telling me. And then a year later, I'm like, maybe that did make a little bit of sense, right?
Sometimes we got to learn things the hard way. We got a policy. We got a policy with our partners where we say, look, we're going to give you all the best advice we possibly can, but we're not going to twist your arm on anything. If you choose to learn lessons the hard way, sometimes that's just how you got to learn them. And we're not going to, we'll make sure our opinion is clear, but that's just the way a lot of us have to learn. So, well, this has been good, Matt. I know we could talk about a ton of other stuff. I know there's things we even chatted about on the phone that we haven't gotten to, but maybe there'll be a round two at some point. And for sure, just because I'm excited to hear what happens for you over the course of the next few years. So keep me posted.
Yeah, will do.
Appreciate you. And also just congratulations, man. You're at a really exciting point in your business right now.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah. Hey, listen to Eric, people. Don't just buy his course and then go figure it out the hard way, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, I appreciate that. All right, man. That is all. Until next time.
Yep. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
All right. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you found it valuable. We make these episodes in the show for you, truly. So your feedback is super valuable to us, whether it's, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Any feedback you can give us is going to be super helpful as we continue to evolve and improve the show over time. And if you want a copy of the Fast Growth Roadmap for Painting Contractors, which really simplifies the steps you take to building a business, we've got that resource for free for you. Just check the description or the bio where you're watching or listening to this episode, and you can just click and download that for free, and it should help give you a good roadmap for how to build and scale your business like the people that you're listening to on the show. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.